All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pigeonhole Motorcycle Podcast. Today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Michael Lichter. How are you, Michael?
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Dave. Good to
Hey,
see you.
it's my pleasure. We've talked, but I haven't got to see you in person, so hopefully we'll release this video wise too.
Oh, cool. Face to face, even though it's digital, but at least we get to see each other.
Now you know why they say I have the face for radio, anyway.
There- Me too.
So
Cool.
I think people that are listening right now, anybody that clicked on this that's listening, when you see the name Michael Lichter, and I'm not stroking you here, but your name, brother, has been synonymous with motorcycle photography, and you've obviously worked your ass off for that.
Well, I have a lot of years in it. A lot of
Uh, the,
years.
and the first time I heard of you, I was at the hand built show, and I saw somebody running around doing stuff. I get back and I was looking. I'm like, well, who took these photos? And then your name started coming up like every other day. I'd hear Michael Lichter, Michael Lichter. I'm like, who is this dude?
Hmm. Well, hopefully it was positive.
It was all positive, and I was blown away. So why don't we help everybody out here? Let's just take a trip back. Like, how did you get into? I know you're a huge into photography, but why motorcycle photography?
Well, the photography goes back to when I was a kid, and my dad loaned me a World War II Pentacon 35 millimeter camera. It was a Pentax screw mount, identical um, camera. It was that often people associate it with a medium format, but it was actually a 35 millimeter camera. And I went off to a summer camp, which was an art camp. And I happened to have a room above the photo lab, and I just fell in love with it. I started working in the darkroom. So at 13, I was putting a darkroom together in the laundry room at home. And my parents would be knocking on the door at 1, 2 in the morning, screaming that I had school the next day and what the hell was I doing? I said, don't open the door, you're going to wreck everything. So that's where the photography goes back to. And then I actually graduated high school a little bit early and went off to a photo farm with 12 other photographers, a farmhouse upstate New York. Lived there for a number of months, and that was quite the experience. As far as motorcycles go, one of your other guests in the last week, I forget who it was, said how they, they're somebody loaned them let them get on their mini bike, a Big Brother or something. And I think everyone around my generation has that experience. I remember the mini bikes in grade school, and some kid from junior high would come by and they'd let you ride it. Boy, that was quite the thrill. And then one of the neighbors got a little, it was a Honda, I think it was a Honda 70 or something, Trail 70, with actually it had a little fairing on it. It wasn't meant for a trail at all, but he had some woods and we used to go riding through there. So I had those kind of experiences growing up. And then in college, a friend of mine, he said, hey, you want to take this for a spin? And it was a 1947 knucklehead chopper with a long ass Springer front end on it.
Wow.
And man, did that go. That was an amazing bike. That was an amazing bike. So I had very shortly after that, I had a Honda. Like a month later, I had a Honda 450.
Right.
And then a year later, I did get a used Shovelhead and went out to California by train and got a used Harley there at Frisco Choppers and rode it back and with a friend. So with the same friend that loaned me his knuckle.
So it's his fault.
So it's his fault. And that knuckle's still around. So
Really?
yeah, it's pretty cool. And my Shovelhead's still around. So I hold on to things.
Nice.
But yeah. And then, we started riding it more and more. I took a trip to the East Coast via Canada, from Colorado up to Canada and down through New England, around the Great Lakes, and out to the West Coast. And I was taking pictures everywhere. So I'd take pictures of what I saw
Right.
and take pictures of the bike. And then the next thing I found myself going to some bike meets, going, oh, this is really cool, and started taking pictures of bikers. So that's how it happened.
It's nice
Pretty
when
organic.
yeah, merging two of your loves together is the best way.
Yeah, it wasn't planned. I find things that are serendipitous and organic work a lot better. I've had younger people come and intern with me from the art school, and colleges sent a number of people up, and they bring their portfolios and they work, maybe a few times or a few months or whatever it is. And one guy came and said, oh, it's great. Thanks for having me. And here's my business plan. Can you take a look at it and let me know what you think? And I go, well, you have two options there. you could either drop it in that trash basket right that you're sitting next to, or you can go out in your car and put it away, because I have no interest in it. And I
Amen.
never had a business plan. Just things come at you, and my motto has always been just say yes.
Takes you a long way,
Yeah. So
obviously.
yeah, the school of hard knocks, and accept jobs that are way over your head, and you just learn
Right.
and work your ass off. So by the time somebody comes in, they have confidence that you can get it done.
All right. So along taking pictures and you go into these bike rallies, and obviously the culture, you obviously were engulfed in it, and the photographs that I've seen, some of your old stuff is just amazing too. Just capturing those moments.
Thank you. A lot of times I think it is some of my best work because I wasn't doing it for anybody but myself.
True.
And so that's often nice. So there was nobody telling me, hey, we need this or we need that. Just went out and shot.
Right.
And then I'd been to Sturgis in 79. Actually, I went in 78, but I got there a week late. And we were reworking my bike, redoing it, and it just wasn't back together again. And so I thought, well, it's done. Well, might as well go to Sturgis anyway. So better late than never. See who's there. Go up there. Never saw a motorcycle. Not in 78. Just kept going all the way up to Canada. But
Wow.
then the year later, I did make it and slept in City Park with a bunch of friends from Boulder. And I was photographing like people around here and then rode with them. We rode to Sturgis. And after that, I printed a bunch of stuff in the darkroom. And I was fully aware of Easyriders. I thought it was great. And at that time, Easyriders was just outrageous. Everything they did was outrageous, and it was so cool.
Right.
And of course, it went pretty far from that original theme, but that original outrageousness. But I loved it, and I sent them some pictures. I sent them 10 black and white prints. And they wrote back saying, hey, great, cool, we love your stuff, and we're going to print 3 of them. I thought, well,
Wow.
okay, so they printed 3 of them. And then like 8 months later, I run into someone from Easyriders, and they go, why'd you stop sending? You sent that stuff. And I said, well, obviously you didn't like it. You only printed 3 of them. And they go, no, you don't understand. 3 of them, that's really good. So
That was my first
anyway,
impression.
anyway, whatever. And then over the next 12 months after that, I started getting assignments, Kansas, Nebraska, whatnot. And then my first big assignment for them was Sturgis 81.
Wow.
Yeah. And then been back there 39 years since.
It's just crazy to think that way, because when you say it, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but that's really that long ago. So
Yeah.
all those experiences and all those photographs. So out of those 39 years, you shot all of them.
I missed 2. There was one year that Easyriders, they started a catalog, a product catalog,
Hmm.
and they were on deadline, and it conflicted with Sturgis. So they wanted me out in California at that same time. It was like a 2-week shoot. So I missed that Sturgis, and there was one other one I missed, I think 85 or something like that.
Incredible. So I can't even think about how many Sturgis images that you probably have.
Well, I've got over a year in Sturgis. I've spent over a year there.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. And you're
That's
still
crazy.
alive too, which is
So
which.
normally I go for over 2 weeks. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so with going to Sturgis, like how long with these? Because I think that a lot of people know you from a lot of the exhibits that you've put on. Like tell me
This
how did?
right,
Yeah. Oh, there's
fashion
yeah,
show. Yeah, that's one of them.
yeah.
And so that started 20 years ago, and it was just a way. Um, I don't know. It was. I'd seen the art of the motorcycle
Mhm.
at the Guggenheim Museum, and I was fortunate enough that the curator showed me around. It was a Monday that they were closed, because you're talking about the most visited exhibition that Guggenheim ever had. I think that was 99, I believe.
Wow.
And so it was a great experience. I photographed that and did a story on it. It had a lot of impact, but I was disappointed there was like 1 or 2 custom bikes in that show. There was 100 bikes. And I thought, they're talking about the art of the motorcycle, and they're missing one of the most artful sides of motorcycling is the custom bikes. Now, they did have race bikes, and I think race bikes are incredibly artful as well. And I think they're the original customs, actually. But so I thought there was something missing. I said, I want to put something together with art and motorcycles. So in 2001, I did that at the Journey Museum, and I had a 5-year gig with them. I agreed that I would put this on for 5 years,
Hmm.
and it became quite a little event. The gallery wasn't as big. I could fit about 13 bikes in there. And I know that first year, Jesse James rode right into the gallery. Willie G. Davidson was there. And we had, a lot of the builders. I knew a lot of the guys. So people showed up.
That's
And then
awesome.
it grew. So again, I was limited by the number of bikes. And it was a beautiful setting. We had a great reception. It was an industry reception. And for the people in the show and the industry, that became quite the deal. I know John Parham, who's no longer with us, but he and Jill would come every year, and they said for years it was their favorite part of Sturgis was that night off. With all the craziness of Sturgis, going to this art gallery in a museum.
Right.
It was quite the presentation. But then after 5 years, we moved it to Sturgis to people at Glencoe. They were putting up this giant, they called it the Thunderdome. And it was a soft roofed structure that it was up 24/7, 12 months a year, but they wanted me to be sort of a flagship part of that, and that enabled me to let it grow. And they built bigger pedestals for it. At the Journey, we used diamond plate on the ground, and it looked great on the carpet, and it was
Yeah.
great, and we had all the lighting. But for this, they built pedestals to at least set it off when we had to build walls. They were carpeted. The walls were carpeted for the art. And then it became this thing where every year I had a theme, and the theme would change every year, uh, which was really the most stupid business model you could ever have. I mean, this was way before there was a show like Born Free or the Hand Built or the Brooklyn Invitational, and but everybody knows those names. But my name changed every year, so
Right.
every year it was a new logo, marketing from scratch and whatnot. So a lot of people refer to it as the Lichter Show, but it's under the umbrella now. Uh, was After a few years at the Thunderdome, I was invited to the Buffalo Chip, where they kind of wooed me away with the promise of building a permanent gallery. So it's more than 6,000 square feet. It has 85 theater lights in it for the bikes, and pedestals are much higher, and
Wow.
they're all carpeted, and it looks really nice. And then a lot of room for artwork on the walls. There's about almost 300 linear feet for wall art, and then we have spots for all the art. And so that was pretty cool. That was in 2009. I moved there,
Wow.
and then in 2010 I had a big show of my work, and then I decided I really don't want to show very much. I was showing too much, and even though I was sharing the space and had a lot of artists, and I was the curator that year, I said, okay, I'm going to do the whole show this year, but then I'm going to take 4 years off and come back every 5 years. So then I've shown my work in 2010, 15, and again in 20. So
Yeah. Let's talk
again
about
with
20.
bikes. So and then we built it up, so it's actually got 38 custom bikes in it,
Huh?
and a number of them come from around the world as well. We don't pay the shipping over the ocean, but we pay all the shipping in the U.S., in the continental U.S. So when the bikes land at the coast, trucks pick it up, and they go around the country picking it up from other builders. I think we were the first show to do that sort of thing,
Oh,
and that made it so I could really be creative on who I was having in the show and be more creative with the themes.
right.
Up
Okay, so
until then, it was who was coming to Sturgis, and would they be there long enough? And so usually it was the bigger builders that were vending, got big trucks and all that, and the people known from Discovery Channel, things like that. But all of a sudden, I was able to get small builders that, newer builders, younger builders that people didn't know as well.
right. So how hard was it to come up with a theme if you're doing it every 5 years to settle on a theme?
Well, the theme is every year. So,
Oh, that's great.
I can give you some examples. This one's called Passion Built.
Okay.
So, to be in this show, you could not earn a living from your craft. So
All
now
right.
I was not, I was excluded from that show because I make a living from photography. And it was
Right.
also one of the 4 years that I don't go in. And so for that, we had 38 builders, 38 custom bikes, and we had, there's usually about 20 artists in it.
Wow.
Although some of those, that could be 10 or 9 artists and 10, 11 helmet painters, for example. So we
Sure.
send helmets out to people to paint, again, with the theme in mind. And so it was, that was kind of cool because I believe that was a year at Passion Built. We had, for example, Willie G. Davidson had his art in it because he doesn't make a living from his watercolors. You see?
Gotcha.
I also had the head of design from Harley that year who's in with his personal artwork.
Very
And,
cool.
and then actually, and since we've had the head of Harley have actually that guy had stepped out, and there was a new head to the design department, and he put a custom bike in because his living is made designing production bikes for Harley Davidson, not
Not
building them.
building. Right.
I had him in the show. It was pushing it a little bit on the stretch, but there were a lot of younger people. So there's some known people that don't do it for a living, but a lot of younger, less known people. That was passion built. We had one year, Naked Truth was in 15. For that show, there could be no paint or finish of any kind on the motorcycle.
Beautiful.
So it was all a sea of raw metal. And I'm telling you, it was impactful to walk into this giant 6,000 square foot room with theater lighting and just a sea of raw metal.
Very cool.
The builders really loved that. They were coming after hours and just there for hours on their knees looking up under the bikes and how the welds were done and just looking at the craftsmanship.
Right.
So there's another year that you couldn't be born in the United States.
Okay. That's
Then
cool.
one that's speed inspired, race inspired bikes, which I always, like I mentioned earlier, I think race bikes are the original custom.
Sure.
You know, that they were custom bikes way before we ever thought there was a custom bike.
Right.
So that was a neat show. Everything from streamliners to you know, hooligan racers and everything. Yeah.
Very cool. So, what's the theme for 2020?
2020 is really, we've had, you know, sort of been sucker punched a bit, as everybody has. So things are adjusting. The theme is, I try to wrap it in the title. So the title is heavy metal, but metal is METTLE. I usually have try to 2 or 3 word title and then sort of a subtitle, subhead, and that is motorcycles and art with moxie. So what it is people, I've been really focused on younger and newer builders the last, probably the last 6-7 years. And, you know, combination, I tie them in, but really trying to promote new builders too.
Right.
But this year it's actually a focus on people that have been around. So it's 20 years or more. That's the moxie. And my premise was that anybody that could have, you know, it was easy during the Discovery Channel years. Everybody threw their hat in the ring.
Sure.
Everybody wanted to be in. But after that, in 2008, with the economic downturn and then really blows to the motorcycle industry in the years since, and then of course now with COVID, to be still in the business is an accomplishment on its own.
Yes.
And so again, this is a year that I'm showing my work, so I feel like I've done that too. You know, I've been in 20 years or more. It's actually, like I said, this is my 40th Sturgis, and really shooting bikes for the culture for about 43 years, I guess. But so that's the premise, and it attracted a really top tier group of builders. But that being said, with COVID, a lot of people started having problems. They were having problems with chrome shops being closed and supplies being unavailable.
Sure.
So yeah, it's they were challenged. And then we had 5 foreign builders. We had 3 shipping bikes from Japan. We had an Italian builder and a German builder, and that just got shut down. So I've changed this in a way that we've never done before. And this is actually going to be a 2-year show. So it'll be a 2-year show with all different work in the 2 years.
Interesting.
The same premise. And the difference will be this year is mostly older bikes. So I felt bad. Some of the guys are really on target finishing, but I said, look, if you don't mind, there will be some new bikes in, but most will be older. Like Donnie Smith and Dave Perowitz, they're putting bikes in from the 80s.
Cool.
A number of people are putting their Discovery Channel bikes in. Jerry Covington called us. He said he's going to put that in. Rick Fairless is going with, I believe it's a Discovery bike. We have Roland Sands. We've got, I'm thinking it's a long list. I should pull it up.
Yeah.
But,
wow.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. But now, because we had people that had to drop out, what I said is, okay, guys, this is not your fault. Come back next year. Bring that new bike next year.
Sure.
And so the builders that were initially invited will be asked to come back with their new bike next year.
Very cool.
So we modified it. We actually put all the T-shirts back through the press and had to overprint on them. And we came up with the name. Actually, my wife came up with it. It's what you call it? Not unplugged. Oh my God, I forget the name. I'll have to. Now I'm gonna have to look at my notes.
No, that's okay.
Um,
It's a very interesting way that we have all have to the greats adjust, right?
you know, it's funny because my brother would say I'm the world's biggest procrastinator, and he's a precrastinator. Have you ever heard that?
Nope.
It's people that have to get things done right away. It's like you're given a deadline, and the deadline they say 30 days. You get up the next morning, it's like, man, you're on it.
Right.
And not only are you on it, but you're going to get it finished really fast,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that being said, I heard an incredible podcast about precrastinators and procrastinators, and it was this professor, a finance professor, economics or something, and he talked about it how he was more of a precrastinator, but he talked about how sometimes procrastination can work for people, and that it can be, especially for creatives.
Okay.
Because sometimes when you don't rush to finish things, things come up. It's that serendipity that I've always loved,
Mm-hmm.
the chance things that happen in your life. And so by not rushing, now of course this theme was done, but you also have to be open to change and whatnot. And
Sure.
so that's, I said, Jesus, how am I going to make this work? But with other things, sometimes I'll be waiting, and boy, I'll tell you the mind connections that I make, and it just becomes more of a creative endeavor. And I'm working on it the next day. I'm thinking about it. I'm just not trying to finish it that day. I
Right.
know I have time. And, you know, someone say you're putting it on the long finger. And so, yeah, I'm putting it on the long finger. I'm working towards it. I'm just not trying to finish it.
Right. And you're
So it's kind
attracting
of,
other things to come to you at the same time.
yeah. So it's kind of an interesting way of looking at things. But so that is also part of the way I work, I guess. And I'm going to tell you not only the name of the show, which I actually told you that already, but there's the adjustment here. Sorry for the
No,
delay.
you're fine,
This is
man.
horrible. Aging sucks, I'm telling you.
Uh,
Get not on your game. You know, I'll tell you some of the builders in it.
yeah,
How's this?
please.
Well, it's a list, but Aaron Green, Arlen Fatland, Bill Dodge, Billy Lane, Brian Clock, Carl Olson, Chico Chikuzawa, Cole Foster, Corey Ness, Craig Rodsmith, Dan, your friend, Dan Bacon Carr, Dave Perowitz, Don Hotop, Donnie Smith, Eddie Trotta, Fred Cuba, Jeff Cochran, Jerry Covington, Jim Massey, Josh Soto, Kiwi Mike Thomas, Mondo, Nicola Martini, Pat Patterson, Paul Weidman, Paul Yaffe, Richard Pollack, Rick Fairless, Ron Finch, Russell Mitchell, Steg von Heinz, Steve Broyles, Carpy, Steve Carpenter, and Tabor Nash.
Damn.
Yeah, it's
This is going to be something else, man. This is going to be super awesome.
yeah, it's a
Holy cow.
so
To coordinate that must be a nightmare, though.
it's pretty much a year, but you know this is part of my procrastinating too. I come up with a name, but I'm working on it the whole time, and it's developing. And I'm talking to people. There's a lot of writing to be done, inviting to be done, and
Hmm.
a lot of talking to be done.
Sure.
And so and there's a lot of elements when you put together sponsorships and logistics, and
Oh my gosh,
it's,
yes.
you know, we have a write up that goes next to each bike on a pedestal. You know, it's there's a lot to be done.
Wow. So everything for Sturgis this year is a go, right?
Well, it is. Sturgis is definitely happening, but you know things are adjusting. So right now, I am not totally sure what's happening. The show must go on, and it will go on. So I'm scheduled to go up on Friday. I don't know if that's the 29th or something like that. I go up a Friday before the Sturgis starts,
Right.
and I don't know what it's gonna be like. You know, it's inside in the gallery, and nobody knows who's going to show up and how many are going to show up. I mean, we know there's a lot of people that really want to go.
Right.
Now, at this point, my plan is to get the show all set up, and for the first time, I looks like I am voluntarily going to miss it. I'm probably going to come
Wow.
home as Sturgis starts,
Wow.
and this is with you know, there's a lot of pressure on me, uh, my family. My mother is turning 90 that week, and there's some people in the family that are definitely uh, more at risk. and I'm going to be put into quarantine when I get back, no matter what. But they're very concerned about. Of course, they don't want me to get it, and I'm not as worried about that. But I am worried about possibly bringing something home that's not wanted. So
Right.
that's how it's looking now.
Wow.
There's a chance that it could change. I'm looking
Right.
at some options, but that's the plan at this point.
Yeah, it's such a
So real
delicate.
different.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think a lot of these people that go to these things, a lot of people aren't worried. But I love your sense of caring for others that, it's a dangerous thing to bring it home. So,
Well,
especially with a 90-year-old birthday coming up too for your mom.
yeah, I'm telling you, it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot to think about, but part of the things are changing so fast,
Right.
right? Around the country, the numbers are definitely spiking, and then the relationship to those numbers is changing, in that we don't really know how it's going to play out yet. The deaths seem to be going down, the percentages, things like that,
Right.
but uh, it's still dangerous,
Right.
So
And I like your the 2 year thing. I think that's a what a great idea to don't not losing your whole the whole exhibit for that. At least it gives people more time to all the hard work that you've already put into it.
well, I didn't want to miss. Had they postponed all of Sturgis, my heart would not have been broken. Unlike other people, I feel there's huge precedent for it because they missed the war years.
Right.
Uh, it just didn't happen. They didn't have those years. So to say this is the 80th, it's not 80 consecutive years. In all honesty, I think a lot of the pushback is people don't want to lose the fact that those anniversary 5 years are on, 19, 2020, 2025, 2030. It fits so nice and neat. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
But that being said, it is what it is. They really did not want to consider it, and
Yeah.
so
That's
it goes.
that's a
Oh,
tough
so I'm
one.
sorry, I forgot to. I'll have to send you the logo. We called it the Unlocked Edition. Again, my wife came up with that, so it's like a
Unlocked.
unlocked. Yeah. So I think that's how this show will most likely get referred to, is Unlocked, the Unlocked Show.
Yeah.
And I'll probably call next year. It could be more metal or heavy metal too, something like that.
I,
But
I
I think it's good. I think it's going to work together. Now, this year, what I decided to do, rather than show all my work 2 years in a row, which breaks from what I said did not want to do,
mhm.
um, is that I invited David Yule and Scott Jacobs to share the gallery. So the three of us, because we've all been in it for a lot of years,
Right.
and so they're going to share the gallery with me. And then and I'm just going to show Sturgis work this year to coincide with the anniversary. Then next year, I'll be a lot of newer work that people haven't seen, and work from all over. So some of my most known work, but also new pieces and things like that. So that's how I'm getting by with the 2 years in a row. I'm keeping this smaller. Next year, I'll do the full gallery.
Right. No, that's an excellent idea. All right. So switching gears here. If anybody hasn't done any research on you, unless they haven't seen, so you have some serious publications that you have out there as well.
Uh, yes, I get it. Right.
I mean, I can say that. It's hard for you to say that, but I think that's. Um,
I, at this point, I've done 11 coffee table books, and lots of magazines. It's hard. I usually don't like. I usually say over 1,000
right.
stories. It's actually many more than that, but it's hard to fathom. But in Easyriders at its peak, there may have been 4 titles. There was VQ, there was V Twin, there was Easyriders, there was In the Wind, there was Biker. Uh, I was doing about 70 features a year. Oh, actually, no, that was how many bikes I did, plus events. And then I published a lot of these. Published in about 10 different countries around the world. So um, I've had a lot of work out there. If you
Oh,
saw my filing system and the magazines that go back to the 70s,
right.
it's pretty amazing to see what's up there in the filing cabinets, that you pull them out, and it's, my God, like 15, 20, 20, 25 stacks maybe. And each one you pull it out, and there's tabs, and every tab was a story.
Unbelievable.
So a lot of
Wow.
film, a lot of film.
Wow. Well, you are the epitome of leaving legacy. There's going to be a lot to said about you for hundreds of years looking back at this stuff,
Yeah,
man.
we'll see about that. There'll be a lot of my crap left behind, but hey, we'll see what happens to that. A lot of it will go in a dumpster. But my son's been working with me for 2.5 years now,
Very cool.
and part of that was he was looking for a change. He'd been an office manager at a business here in Boulder. It was a German company that had a headquarters here in Boulder. He'd been the office manager for 5 years, and he was really looking to do something more different
Right.
and change things. And my assistant had announced she was leaving. I tend to keep assistants for a long time. One was for 11 years, full
Wow.
time. It's
Unbelievable.
unheard of in photography to have like a full time guy, 11 years. And part of that time we had other people. There was probably 3 years with this Italian woman that was simultaneous, and other people along the way. But we were busy as a commercial studio as well. When I wasn't doing bikes, we had lots of other stuff going on. Now
Wow.
that Sean's here, I said to him, you could learn this. And I want him to become a master printer. And he's working to that end. And really, he's developing quick. He's doing great. And he's doing all the printing now. So I said, if you understand what's here, then maybe you could make something of it. And I don't necessarily think this should be your life work. This was my life's work.
Sure.
But be conscious of it. It could have value at some point. And whatever you do with your life, and you change careers and find something else or go back to school, that's fine. But you'll
Right.
have this on the side. At least you'll know it. And they said, other than that, let's pull a dumpster up to the studio, go to the filing cabinets and just flip them upside down in there, because what are you going to do with it? If you don't know what to do with it, it's trash.
Very true. Very true. And we were speaking a little bit before that, well, I love this industry because, especially with you, that this takes you all over the world. And to be able to share some of that, especially with your son, must be
Oh,
incredible.
that's amazing. I think one of his favorite trips is Moon Eyes. And so hopefully that'll happen. We've been invited back again in December. So Shige has been inviting me for 7 years, I think. And then before that, I even went in the mid 2000s. So I love Moon Eyes. And doing that with my son, we actually spend an extra 8 days of traveling around Japan, visiting bike shops, visiting builders and
Unbelievable.
bike shops. It's kind of funny. We're in Kyoto, like the home of 1,000 temples. And I said, well, uh, we're visiting the Temple of Speed today. And that's as far as we went. Unfortunately, he didn't get to see any Buddhist shrines that trip. Maybe we'll get some extra time some year. But yeah, but it's a great way. To me, I prefer to travel. I love travel, and my wife and I travel, and she's actually Irish. So uh, went back to Ireland every year for many, many years. And we've done a lot of traveling. But I prefer business travel. And I call it business, but it's my photography. So it's my passion, my fun. But it's how when you go to a place like that and you're in somebody's shop, and then they say, let's get some food in from the sushi guy next door, or for the tempura guy next door, and they take the bike away because the shop is so small, the bike is moved and a table's put out, or end up in a hot tub under Mount Fuji with some Hell's Angels. Shit you end up with, it's like, how did this happen? This is truly serendipity, right?
Right.
And but what a better way to see a culture. And
Right.
you don't often get to go into people's homes and have a meal there. That's
Sure.
not as common in other parts of the world. But to be able to do that through motorcycles, wow, it's great. So we've been to Italy. We had a exhibition in Switzerland. We've done a show in Germany. We've gone riding through Nepal.
Oh
Uh,
man.
so we've had some great father-son experiences that, man, I cherish.
Right. And it's just work. I mean,
Hey, it's
which
fine
is,
work.
I like business travel as well. That's
I
cool.
mean, and the truth is, I approach it very seriously. I don't sleep a whole lot when I'm traveling because I have so much to do
Right.
and get done. We were just in Siberia, Sean and I, the week before the shutdown, right before the planes got shut down, a week before we got back in. But we were photographing ice racing on Lake Baikal, the biggest lake in the world. And to give you an idea of the size of Russia, we flew to Moscow,
Okay.
and then it's an overnight flight, 5 time zones from Moscow to Lake Baikal.
Holy cow.
Russia's like 13 time zones.
That's insane. I,
It
I
is.
can't even fathom that.
But we went to some Buddhist village on the way to the ice racing, and there's a lot of people I know there, and my Russian friends especially. But been to Russia a few times now. I judged the bike show there twice now, in Moscow. But So a lot of Russians that I know, but also people from Europe that were there, and friends from there, and you meet always meeting new people. When I'm in Japan, there's so many people that I know now.
It's a,
It's great.
and I guess when you're younger and you're doing this stuff, when would you ever think you're sitting saying, "Oh, yeah, all my friends in Japan, all my friends in Russia," like it's
Yeah,
cool.
it's really cool. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
and that you get to do things that you love. That you get your photography, your motorcycles together, and it doesn't sound like you've worked a day in your life.
If you love what you do, right?
Right?
It's
That's what they say anyway.
hard to call it work, but I do come in and say to my wife that oh, I'm working really hard. So
Of course. And there's a difference between tools and toys.
that's
Some
right.
they might look like a toy, but it's a tool, honey. That's what we use.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got a lot of tools out here, I'll tell you.
This is good, and it gives you reason to do stuff for it too. So
Absolutely.
tell us too, because I want to make sure to bring light to you've been like running the podcast circuit here with a ton of different interviews. Can you let all the listeners know too other things that you've done so they can check those out
Yeah,
as well?
it's I think in times of COVID, people are looking for this kind of
Yeah.
communication. So I've been invited to do a few things. In Italy, I did a podcast that was we just put photos up and I talked about them. I do this often at exhibitions. Sometimes people come in and I'll take a small group around and I'll talk about each photograph because each photograph is a story behind it,
Right.
and a lot of people enjoy hearing those stories. So we spent it was decently over an hour just talking about photos and it went real well. And Chris Callan from Cycle Source had actually listened in on that and loved it and said, "Oh my God, we got to do that."
Right.
I did one of those with him. That was on his Shop Talk, which is a Sunday night
Hmm.
show that he does, and we did that a few weeks ago. They also have he produces for other people this Cannonball Chronicles. So I've been tied to the motorcycle Cannonball for, they've had 5 of them over 10 years, every other year, and I've done all 5, plus their chase. So I've done all of those. And so they asked me, "Hey, can you come on and show one picture and just, we'll call it a picture's worth 1,000 words." So it was a segment, and then they asked me to stay on and co-host that with them. So I do my segment, and then last night we did it, and I stayed on and co-hosted. But then there's another one, Bikers and Racism, which is real topical. And I was asked if I would help out with that, and I said, for that one, how about I just come on when it's appropriate, like if I know the people and can add to that particular one.
Sure.
So I did one with Gavin Fox and a few weeks ago, and then this past week, on Tuesday, we did one with Sugar Bear, which I thought was great because Sugar Bear is an amazing master builder, also scheduled to be in my show, but couldn't finish it this year, so he's going to be back in next year.
Right.
And Sugar Bear is an octogenarian. He'll be 81 in September. And so he's got lots of personal stories. And to me, this whole thing that's going on with the question of race, and I think a good way to say it is those difficult questions, that actually not even question, difficult conversations.
Right.
And I think they're really important to have. Now,
They are.
Sugar Bear and I have been having it for 17 years because I invited him to Sturgis in 2003. And that was his first trip there. And he was very nervous about it. And we talked about this very openly from the moment I called him to invite him. And so that was, and he's gone on to be a fixture in Sturgis, so much so that he's in the Sturgis Hall of Fame now.
That's awesome.
And loves it. And he's doing a museum up there. But I think sometimes by people telling their personal stories, he grew up knowing his great grandmother till he was 17. And she was raised as a slave for 12 years.
Crazy.
The only thing is, slavery had been abolished, but nobody told them.
Nobody told them.
That's right. So before she was born, slavery was abolished, but she lived 12 years as a slave before they were told. So, I mean, those kind of stories, and hearing it coming from Sugar Bear, who everybody loves, it's great. And I think it's a great way to break down barriers. So anyway, that's another show. And then Chris Simmons is starting a show, Motorcycling Coast to Coast, really focused on women. And so I think she's poaching me away from the Cannonball. So I may join her as a co-host and do that. So
Very cool.
hey, how can you pass up being with all those women, right?
Right.
And my wife's going, wait a minute, it's a show by women for women, and why are you there?
Once again, it's work.
It's work.
Work.
There you go.
Sometimes we have to do things, that make us a little uncomfortable. That's okay.
There you go. Not too uncomfortable. That's right. But and I've known Chris. She's a wonderful person. She's in all the Hall of Fames for her contributions to women in riding,
Hmm.
and she's done a great job. And we go back to mid '80s when we first met, and she was doing Harley Women's Magazine, and we were together at Malcolm Forbes' place when they unveiled the Purple Passion Elizabeth Taylor Sportster, things
Hmm.
like that.
That's
Got pictures of Malcolm Forbes riding Elizabeth Taylor on the back of his Sportster.
oh my god.
You know.
That's fantastic. So, do you have? Here's I was looking through your gallery last night. So, anybody that if you haven't been to Michael's website, go through there, look through these galleries. I mean, it's amazing. You're going to get lost though. Make sure you put enough time. It's like don't go down the rabbit hole. You
Yeah,
got to stay.
unfortunately, there's only 5 years. I can't imagine when I get more years up, but
I
uh,
know.
we've held off. We actually have a new site that'll be going live in the next couple of months, and we've spent an enormous amount of time
Okay.
and money over the last 2 years developing it. But our current platform is having problems. It still works, but and I'm big on searches. That's a big part of the searches aren't that great with it, and so the new site's going to be really thorough.
Wow.
And then I'll start working my way backwards in years, adding more.
And I'm sure cataloging images and even naming and things like that, I'm sure that when you get to a point after doing it this long, even when you go back when stuff's not digital, is there anything in photography that you really wish you would have done that would have saved yourself a crap load of time now?
You know, given the circumstances, and my son's always amazing going, how did you come up with that numbering system 40 years ago? Things like that. And probably the only thing I would have changed
Right?
is to use a 4-digit year instead of a 2-digit year. That's all. Because I am going back and scanning some more stuff now. And so obviously 99 comes after '01. So it'd have been
Yeah.
nice if 1999 was, now of course on the site that'll all be worked out, but just in terms of our own internal systems and looking for things,
Right.
that's one of the very few, but I think I'm very good about numbering and how we
Right.
track stuff.
So you should have known when you started this numbering system you're going to do it for 40 years. Then you could have had, some foresight and how you want to do this.
When I started, who would have thought I would have been doing it for 2 years, right? So, I mean,
Very true.
it was just something I did. You don't know.
That's crazy. All right, so I had another question that I thought was cool. So, favorite place? It sounds like you've already mentioned some of the favorite place that you've gotten to travel for business that you would have never had the opportunity to do if you weren't into the motorcycle industry.
Uh, I could have almost said Nepal because I love that trip so much, and I've been there riding twice.
Right.
Um, but that being said, I actually traveled. I was in Nepal for like 2 months in 1975 without motorcycles, so I can't
Really?
say that.
Yeah.
Favorite place gone with motorcycle. I think it's there's very few places I've been with motorcycles that I haven't been on my own. And I'd love to go back to some place. I haven't done motorcycling in India, and I'm desperate to do it. And you've had some great guests from India, so I'm
Amazing.
waiting for that invitation. I really wanted to do something with Royal Enfield, but they haven't been very responsive. But where I think it's more how to travel. So, like, I love Italy. I've been there probably almost 20 times now.
Wow.
And I mean, one year I went 3 times. And a big thing there was I had a show in Germany, and a guy I got handed a business card saying this guy's looking for you. He's interested in some of your prints, and I said, oh great. And so I found him like a few hours later, and I said, oh, I have this list here. What would you like? What are you interested in? And he goes, oh, I want them all. I'm like, holy crap, never happened before. So he bought
Wow.
a whole bunch of prints and took them back to Italy. And he became like my biggest collector, but he also owned the #1 Harley shop in Italy. It was called Numero Uno. And he became a rep for me, really. And he had a big exhibition in Milan that was phenomenal. Loaned me and then asked me there were 2 parties involved. So he said, oh, you have to stay for 2 weeks. So here, take this dresser and go off to Tuscany and have a good time with your wife riding for a couple of weeks. So,
Right.
things like that. It's the way you travel. So I've gone to Italy just for pleasure, but going, like I mentioned earlier. So Italy is, I just love traveling through Italy. Sweden, I'm going to name a few that I just love.
Yeah.
Sweden, I love Sweden. I've been a guest judge there at the Norrtälje show twice. Actually, that is a place that I probably would not have been. It was on our list, but I hadn't been there except for the motorcycles. And both times my wife came and we turned them into bigger trips.
Sure.
Last time we got on a ferry boat, went to Finland and St. Petersburg afterwards, or traveled
Great,
around
man.
Sweden. It's such a gorgeous country.
Yeah.
Um, Japan. I had been to Japan without bikes, but really the travels through Japan through motorcycling has been such a beautiful entry into their culture.
Right.
Love it.
That's crazy. You know what? I just feel that you're obviously, you're extremely fortunate for being able to do these places and do things you love. Have you ever, through this 40 years, have you ever struggled for inspiration? And if so, what's your go-to to get fired back up?
That's always a good question. It's a great question. Uh, and you hear it with writers, they have writer's block and things like that. But for me, this really has been a job also. We joke about it saying it's my passion, but I did do commercial photography. I've done annual reports where I was off 8 cities doing a black and white portrait in each place, one in Manchester, England, and one in Paris. And, it's like, and there's a lot of stress and pressure over it, a
Sure.
lot of preparation because I get really prepared for these things. And shoots where you have a week-long shoot in the studio. I did a lot of medical and computer work, things like that. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, I really enjoyed all that. And that was a job. So that you're not waiting for inspiration. You just got to do it. It's your job, right? Like you go to work, whether it's a factory job or whatever, you go to work. I happen to love what I did, but it was tough at times. And a lot of times I'm prepping at 1 a.m. the night before, still trying to work things out. Because
Sure.
when they walked in, I was ready. But as far as personal work and maybe even going back and editing and things like that, I don't really struggle for it. I have a lot of interests, whether they be music or listening to podcasts. And I find the synergy of all these things working together gets me fired up. I
That's
think I
good.
mentioned earlier, I was listening to a podcast on Robert Frank last night, and he's one of my heroes in photography. And, you know, actually, it was the second time I listened to it, and it's an hour and 10-minute long podcast.
Right.
It's super well done. It was so well done. It's actually a New York Times feature that was read.
Oh,
So, and I took the first time I listened to it because I just want to take it all in, and then I listened to it last night and I took notes. I just
absorb it.
I wrote down quotes and things I liked, and to me that's inspirations.
All right.
Um,
That's great, though. You know what?
I can't say I really struggle with it.
That's good.
Yeah, I think when you do lots of different things, somehow they work together to keep you going and give you energy.
Yeah. And truly, and you're a testament to following what you love, and things fall into place. And like you don't plan on stuff, but you just I like your business plan story because that's kind of how things go. You know, I couldn't tell you that if I had to guess in a million years that I'd be doing a motorcycle podcast. I would have laughed if somebody would have told me that.
Yeah.
I would have never known.
Especially you not riding. So
Right,
I would have
exactly.
thought, but then the way it developed with you and Craig. So,
Exactly.
there are some things I just thought of. I bring it up that one place I did get to go to. So this is truly probably maybe the best
Hmm.
was Cuba, because I did go to photograph.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where I got a call. This was in like 2008 or 9. And phone rings. And I'm not a person, some people hate answering the phone. It's like, oh God, what a hassle. Who's on the other side? They don't want to open the mail, like what's in it. They don't want to check their email. It's like, oh, hassle. I love it. I love checking email. I love answering the phone going, who's it going to be? What's it
Right.
going to be? So and great things come up. Now on that day, it was somebody with a heavy Italian accent, and they said that they were with Metzler Tires in Milan, Italy, and they said, would I have any interest in going to Cuba? So I paused as I pinched myself and going like, oh my God, don't scream and shout, and said, oh yeah, sounds great. And they said it wasn't a job, that they weren't going to pay me. And I said, okay, what's the deal? And they said, well, they had a film crew that they were sponsoring. They were doing a documentary.
Hmm.
And it did involve tires in a way because they were giving some tires away. But I was free to photograph whatever I wanted, that I could go with the crew and photograph these Harleystas in Cuba. And I thought, well, it's my motto, just say yes, right? So
Right,
I
of
just said
course.
yes. And it led to a great series. Actually, it ran in Hot Bike Japan, which is different than Hot Bike America. It's a totally different company, and perfect bound. It's like a book, beautiful gloss, and they ran 22 pages on it.
Wow.
And it ran 16 in Europe, in France, I think, and it ran all over. It ran in a lot of
Great.
places. So I knew it was a good story that had legs, and I knew that that's why they were inviting me. They knew that if they asked me to come, that I would get it published because I have a track record.
Right.
So that happened, and in the end, they ended up buying it from me anyway. They did a whole calendar that was the most. I've done lots of calendars, but it was the most spectacular. It was huge. It's a collector's item. I can't, to ship the calendar costs a fortune. It weighs a ton. It is so heavy. The
Right.
paper it's on, printed in Germany. It's amazing. But
Wow.
so again, just say yes, and things happen. And I'm waiting for more invitations. I'd love to go to. You had a guest from, was it Indonesia last week? Malaysia.
Malaysia, yeah. Oh, the
Malaysia.
art of
Yeah.
speed. Yes, he
So
great guy.
Artist Speed, and actually people have talked to me, and he's talked to me even about coming to his show and an Indonesia show, and I'm waiting for those to come through because I want to go to more places that I haven't been.
Of
I've
course.
been to a lot, and been to China and Tibet and
Right.
and India and all these places, but there's a lot of places I haven't been. So I'm anyone out there,
Bring
I'm
it
open to
on.
invitations. Bring it on because I think it's all good. It's to me, it's a wonderful way to live, and that. Um, like the Nepal trip, it just opens you up, and to see the world, I think it's good for your soul.
No, and that's good. And that's where we are going to drop it off here because before I let you go, Michael, though, because I think that's a lesson for everybody, which is great. I've been looking forward to asking you my final question that I ask all of our guests. First of all, I appreciate your time on the show, and I know that you have another appointment coming up as well. So I want to hear three people that you would love to hear on this podcast.
You know, pretty much all your other guests, I think, have nominated custom bike builders for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but most of them have been custom bike builders.
Sure.
And I think because of my involvement with the community, I'm going to step away from that. I know too many people that are, I know so many worthy people for this, and you've been doing a fantastic job pulling people in, including a number that I'm not familiar with, which I think has been really great. Um, so I'm going to leave that to you. You've been doing such a good job, and I'm going to look at it a little differently, and maybe suggest people involved in the industry, in the community, in the media. I may even give you more than three. Um,
Beautiful.
I have a dear friend who's in Sweden. His English is impeccable, and he was. We met we met in a bar, actually, probably 20 years ago, and I think in Germany. And I didn't really know anything about him, but we hit it off, and then kept meeting him. And then he'd gotten a job at. He was working at BMW as a designer, but he designed. He did great there, and he kept moving up through the ranks until he became head of design there. And yeah, he did a great job. And then he moved away to, and we worked together on a few things where we introduced the prototype R9T at my exhibition in Sturgis, the one that Roland did. That was shown in North America for the first time at my show.
So cool.
So we worked close together on that. I had the wonderful opportunity to introduce the head of design of Harley to the head of design at BMW and be the fly on the wall. And that was in Milan at a show. I said, hey guys, I was talking to both of them the week before. I said, I got to set this up.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ola is a dear friend. He's actually the head of design at Indian Motorcycles now, and he does work out of Sweden. Normally would come 2 weeks a month to Minnesota. Ola Stenegard, I can get you all his contact info after.
Thank you.
And then I mentioned Chris Callan before. I'm going to put him on that list because he's a guy that's been doing basically a chopper magazine for 20 years.
Right.
And so being in publishing, in print, and he's still around. And we lost another one this week. American Iron went under this week after 31 years. So to be able to still be in business and be relevant and develop and have an online presence,
Sure.
I think that's and he really knows the community. So I think
That'd be
and
great.
he could talk about the changes. So I think Chris Callan would be very good.
Awesome. Thank you.
And get some more names for you. Another one in magazines. Okay, so this is Chris is representing somebody that's been around for a long time.
Sure.
Andrew Campo from Meta Magazine. He's well spoken. I like his understanding of the motorcycle world, and it's a different approach. It's I think a very globalist approach in terms of he's open to just all brands, all types, everything. And it's a new form of print publication. It's the kind where each one is a precious book. Comes out. It was 3 times a year. It's going to 4 times a year,
Awesome.
and it's a beautiful piece to hold in your hand. It's so well printed.
Very cool.
You could find those at Barnes and Noble. Actually, they keep them there. But and so I'd recommend Andrew in terms of representing this kind of new print media that's developing.
That's cool.
Well, I could go on, but I'll leave it
Yeah.
there. There's plenty more. I know so many people that would be great at this.
Well, we'll contact offline, and I always like to hear
Pick my brains.
I appreciate it very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks. If you, Michael, I appreciate your time, man. I know that you're a super busy man, and thank you for sharing your stories, some of your stories, a minute part with us and with our listeners. So I appreciate that very much, my man.
Pleasure being here, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and good luck at Sturgis, and then we'll be in contact really soon, my friend.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks,
it.
Michael.
See ya. Take care.
All right, take
Bye
care.
now.